Manchester United's defence is better than last season. Why? I'm going to tell you why. I could almost say it's immeasurably better, but I've got the measurements, I've got the stats, I've got the data, so I know exactly how much better it is. And it's very basic to sit here and say, we signed Martinez, therefore it's better. Pretty basic, isn't it? It's pretty low-level analysis to go, why is it better? Signed him, and he's meant sound. That'd be a very short video, wouldn't it? And you wouldn't have actually learned anything, and that's not what we're here for. We're here to try and learn something. Now, Diogo Dalot, honestly, a little bit ordinary, wasn't he? Bit of a backup player. Maybe playing on the left a bit, playing on the right a bit. He used to have a decent cross, then he went to Italy, forgot how to cross, remembered how to defend. But the player that we're seeing this season, where's he been? Where did he come from? Luke Shaw suddenly decided he knows how to play football again. Rafael Varane didn't necessarily forget that he was injury prone, but looked incredible when he's played. Didn't look this good last season. Looked good, but Jesus. We have improved massively. It's now been 8 hours since United conceded a goal at Old Trafford. A run that's got 6 games from the final hour of the Europa League game against Real Sociedad in the first group game. And obviously it ends in the win over West Ham. We've now registered 5 consecutive clean sheets at Old Trafford. We have Newcastle, Tottenham, West Ham, Omonia and Sheriff. If the horror shows against City and Brentford are removed from the record, United have conceded just 6 goals in Premier League games this season. Now those two, well, they had an extra 10, don't they? Which isn't good. But it shows the improvement. We had a long period where we couldn't find a solid duo, and this is why recruitment is so important, and this is where the Martinez praise comes in, because he's been sensational. The last time we had a duo that played week in, week out was probably Smalling and Blind, and that was a short-lived little partnership. The last partnership that was as good as this one looks was Rio and Vidic. Martinez has come in and gone, I play here, left-hand side of defence, and I'm proper top at it. And Varane has slotted in right alongside him before his injury, and they literally look like they were made for each other. They've both got the best out of each other, and they've both got the best out of the team by playing alongside each other. Now, previous managers, like Jose, he would swap in our centre-halves week in, week out. And some of that was down to injuries. Some of that meant, availability, selection issues. Like we've seen all sorts of crazy partnerships. We've seen Rojo and Baye. We've seen Smalling and Blind. We've seen Harry Maguire and Varane. Didn't look that impressive last season. Harry Maguire played a lot of games because he was pretty resilient and wasn't injured very often. But he never really found a partner that made the two of them look good. Maguire and Lindelof probably had quite a lot of consistent games together, but did you ever really feel like they were the basis to build anything from? Because I didn't really. Van Gaal's defensive motto seemed to be that he wanted to work with the defenders that United had and bring in the likes of Daley Blind to the club because he knew him and could work with him, but the majority of defenders he brought in just weren't good enough. Matteo Darmian started off brightly and then just completely and utterly disappeared. Jose Mourinho brought in the likes of Baye, Lindelof, Dalot. I mean, I can't even actually remember who brought in Rojo. I feel like it was Van Gaal. But he always wanted something more, and he supposedly wanted the likes of Alderweireld and loads of other centre-halves that he was never given. Ollie and Rafa are a little bit similar to Van Gaal. Obviously, they signed, Ollie signed Wan-Bissaka and Maguire, and definitely overspent with those, and obviously Ralph just had to do with whatever he's got because he was a temporary manager. And it didn't work. Over the road at Manchester City, you had a whole back five just shuttled in and shuttled out again. Multiple times until Pep Guardiola found the right stuff. And even some of the ones that he spent so much money on and was criticised for spending so much money, the likes of John Stones, took him a long time to play John Stones consistently. Took him out of the team for the longest time, fixed him up, brought him back in. You only get to do that when you've got the time. And none of the United managers have had that sort of time. What Ten Hag has done, he's kept it pretty compact. He hasn't been reckless. In the big games this season for the likes of United, Liverpool, Arsenal, even Everton, and some of those games, we've had to stay compact and we've had to be resilient and almost last ditch at times in our defending. And he's set United up in those games to play by keeping the midfield and the defence very close together, in the middle of the pitch, forcing the opposition to go wide. And apart from the City game, I think it was effective. In the City, I mean, we caught City on a bad day, and they're gonna do that to people on their day. But the fact that we've got so many good results against the remainder of the top six, and we're very unlucky in some of those games, is a huge positive. The tactical change with deploying two midfielders in the six, even if they're not necessarily suited to be in the six, in Casemiro and Eriksen, when they sit as a pair of twos, making a bit of a safety square with Varane and Martinez, stopping the opposition striker having any sort of time on the ball, stopping any sort of penetration into that little space, has been incredibly effective. And one of the real joys in possession, that little quartet has been very, very effective. And with the fullbacks playing a lot more narrow and not getting into the final third beyond the wingers, it means they're in far better positions to be able to react to anything that happens. And it means that they're not as tired and they're not doing as much mileage as they normally would. They're sort of shuttling between being in their position and then maybe pushing up and narrow a little bit rather than getting beyond the winger and into sort of penetrative zones. That's helping us have a mid sort of defensive block. It crowds out the central areas and it makes opposition go around us. It also means when you lose the ball in those areas, you've just got people that are already in those areas and are able to immediately press those areas. It's been excellent. It's been extremely effective. And I think you have to talk about Dalot's progress. He came to United with a lot of promise and pressure probably as well, and a player that was labelled by Jose Mourinho as being the best fullback in Europe in his age group and one of the bright stars at Manchester United going forward. No pressure, mate. And then he hadn't played a lot of senior football. He's making a move to United, and people thought Jose was even joking when they talked about him going on loan to AC Milan, but he came back, didn't look so much like a new player, but he's having a sort of season that he might peak. Like, if he takes it to another level after this, that's crazy. His 1v1 defending is excellent and sharp. Going forward, he's rediscovered the qualities that I think singled him out as a potential superstar. Ten Hag seems to be asking him to play as an inverted fullback. Took him a couple of games to get used to it, but now you can see he looks like he knows what he's doing. He looks like he enjoys what he's doing. And the team are getting extra firepower in midfield by adding him as the extra man. Dalot is the only player in the Premier League, and I think this is going under the radar, by the way. Dalot is the only player in the Premier League with the following: 15 plus interceptions, 15 aerial duels won, 15 tackles made, and 15 open play chances created. What? Those are a mad group of metrics. Very influential group of metrics. And Dalot is the one with all of those. He's also made the most tackles in the final third with 20, which is more than any other United player this season. And he's also played the third most this season so far with 1,075 minutes. We've only De Gea and Bruno Fernandes playing more minutes. Where did this come from? Nobody, including Dalot, thought that this was going to happen this season, I'm sure. But we got to ask, where can United build upon this? How do we get better? How do we have... We've got currently a solid and performing backline. Looked a little bit ropey at times with Maguire against West Ham. But the back four, what I would consider first choice back four, Dalot, Varane, Martinez and Shaw, has been pretty consistent and pretty good. In the other competition, we've had to have players come and fill in. Lindelof has looked good. Malacia has looked solid. We haven't had anyone come in at right back. And then I think Maguire could improve and get to the level we need him to be as a backup. Whether he's happy with that or not is another thing. But United could go and add a little bit of depth to this area to make sure we don't have any drop-off in consistency. And you could do what City have done by identifying some, good experienced players and youngsters and mix them in and and keep that sort of consistency going, because any sort of drop off in the back four, I think is going to have a knock-on effect to the rest of the team. And I think you got to look at some of the available players that can come in and do bits. Now, I've mentioned Jeremy Frimpong last week. You could even have a look at Ethan Laird. A lot of United fans think he's ready for the step up. Centre-back's an interesting situation, because I think that's one where Maguire and Lindelof theoretically could be suited to be the backup ones for Varane and Martinez. A lot of fans are still unsure about Maguire. But you've still got 3 players from the academy still at the... I mean, you have still got Phil Jones, but I don't think anyone's playing that tune at the moment. You've got the likes of Deschamps Bernard, who had a phenomenal loan in the Championship last season. You've got Mengi, who has been out for 8 months with an injury. He's just getting back to playing 90 minutes at the moment. You've got Tuanzebe, who should have been an England regular by now, but the injuries have absolutely decimated his career. You've got 3 players there that I think one of them has got the right stuff to be able to come in and be the 4th choice. That's all we're asking for them to be. The 4th choice centre-half. That's not saying, can you come and play 50 games to the same level Martinez has? No way. Coming and being the 4th choice is an achievable job for at least one of those players. Left-back position doesn't necessarily need to be filled by anyone, with Shaw and Malacia doing what they're doing. Maybe you've got Brendan Williams that you could fill in at left or right back potentially. From a defensive point of view, the top 5 players with the best accuracy in the United squad, they're all defenders. Quite a normal thing. In 12 matches, we've kept 5 clean sheets. We've already won 684 aerial duels so far this season, and goals conceded are 1.33 per game, which is almost 20% better than last season. We are doing bits. We are getting our shit together. And we've had a couple of pastings this season, but we're improving. And that's all you can ask from us. I'm excited to see what Ten Hag does next. What's the next chapter for this team? Because I think he knows what he's doing. I think he's correctly identified brilliantly what was needed. And I think it just needs a little bit more of a tweak. And this is going to be the rock which any potential title challenge in the next few years is going to be built on. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, 5-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.